Hello there. What is it? What do you want this time? Jesus Christ, you try to do one thing and everyone hates you for it.
What are you doing back here now?
Oh my god. Anyway, hi. Do you like my shirt? Graphic design is my passion. Before anyone says a single fucking thing about it. I know it's 7 years. I've been looking at this design for like 5 days straight. Never noticed anything wrong with it. As soon as I print it, I look at it and I go, 7 years, wasn't it? It's for the sake of comedy. It doesn't matter. It's funny. Hello, I love Greek mythology and I also love being a clown. Now, you might recognize this little setup from a past video I made where I was talking about shitty mythology movies from the 2010s. This is a spiritual sequel to that because when I was doing research for all of those movies initially, I found just a treasure trove of weird Odyssey themed movies, but there were way too many to include in that one video and it would also have made like half of the video about the Odyssey. So I just decided to save it all and just put them all in their own video. Now, the original idea for this was to go through and watch all of the adaptations of the Odyssey that there are. However, there are far more than I originally anticipated. People have already done that idea. That's fine. No one's ever had an original idea in their life. But 3 is a lot of these movies I don't want to watch. Like, there's a silent film from the 20s. That's great. I don't want to watch it. It is available for free on Wikipedia if you want to watch it, though. The straw that really did me in on it was a 2.5 hour long movie about the Odyssey, but it's set in like the 60s or whatever, all in Greek. The only place that I could actually find to watch it with English subtitles was on like a shady Russian website. I don't want to get a virus on my computer. I don't want to sit through 2.5 hours of this movie. I'm just not going to do it. So instead of watching every Odyssey movie that has ever been made out there, I just want to watch the shitty ones. All right, no, she doesn't actually want anything. She wants to stare and complain as usual. Anyway, shitty Odyssey adaptation. I might have said movies. Now, they're not all movies, but they all are Odyssey adaptations in some form. And oh my god, are they disasters. For this video, I did try my best to get through as many as I could. I got through 8, and I did all of that within the past week. Mostly because I was prepping for this video for longer by reading the actual fucking Odyssey. That's right. I came with a hard, concrete backup to all of the bullshit that I'm about to be saying. Well, why are you standing on that? Could you stand anywhere else? Oh my god. As I was saying, I have read the physical Odyssey book. This specifically is the translation by Robert Fagles. Thank you so much to whoever out there left me a comment like a year and a half ago suggesting me this translation. You were so fucking right. The Fagles translation was really good for my reading comprehension levels. It was still a little tricky, but hey, however, it was a very manageable challenge. Thank you so much for your recommendation. I really enjoyed this book. I think Fagles also did a translation of the Iliad. I would love to read that next. Also, not only do I have this copy of the Odyssey in my possession right now, there are no less than, wait for it, 3 copies of the Odyssey in this room at any given point that I know of. There could be more. However, I feel like this is enough. Anyway. Is this still recording? Hi. The last video, I said that like if my public library doesn't have it, I don't need to see it. These are so shitty, so old or so shitty or so obscure that like they're not available on any streaming service anywhere. And if they're not on any streaming service and not in my public library, there's only one option left. Luckily for me, YouTube had all of them, so if you want to watch any of these for some ungodly reason, I will leave links to all of them down below. That's all I have to say about that. On to the shitty movies. With Wishbone on the trail. Come on, Wishbone. Now, to start this all off, I watched an episode of Wishbone, the children's educational show about the little dog running around through history and literature, I think. I don't know. I've never seen an episode of Wishbone in my life, but this intro was incredible. Now, this episode of Wishbone is entitled Homer Sweet Homer, and it recounts the tale of the Odyssey while also cutting back and forth between the present day of these kids fighting against a mega corporation trying to put a fast food chain in the middle of a park that they all go to. Now, first off, in our Odyssey segment of this episode, we see that little doggy Odysseus is in fact on the Isle of Calypso on a leash, which highly accurate. And then it cuts back to Penelope at home missing her husband ever so dearly. What I want to know is in all of these segments where they interject a dog instead of the main character, did Penelope fuck a dog? because they have a kid. They like Telemachus is there. Telemachus is also a fully grown adult man. He's not like a 20-year-old or like someone who could pass as 20. Like he's a man. Anyway, going off of that, Calypso is also in love with Odysseus. Does she also want to fuck the dog? This is a very strange one to start off with. We cut back to real life. Kids are chilling out at a park, having a picnic, reading books. I don't know what the fuck they do. And this man comes in and is like, "Hey kids, what are you doing here? This park is due for development because we're gonna put like a Hungry Burger here or whatever." And they're like, "But this is the park that we play at, mister." And he's like, "Get the fuck out of here. We're gonna tear down this tree and we're gonna make you fat with all of the fast food." One of the kids is like, "I love fast food." And they're like, "Wait, but what about the trees? We have to stop this greedy corporate man from coming in here and destroying our park." I will say, I love the idea of them all being hippies and also taking down this establishment. I do think that it was very interesting to stick the subplot of the kids protecting this tree in with a story about a man who famously cuts down a tree to make his wedding bed. I think they could have workshopped that one a little bit better. However, I like where you guys are thinking. Anyway, this woman named Wanda comes in and she is the local lesbian. I don't know what she does, but she's gay. I took one look at her and I'm like, I can clock it. Wanda's like, "We're not gonna let them get away with this. We're gonna use our civil rights and we're gonna stand up to these people."
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
Excuse me. Are you Mr. King of Suitor Development Corporation?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm Wanda Gilmore, and I don't like the way you do business.
The fact remains that I have a legal right to build a shopping center on this property.
Not so fast, Buster. By this time tomorrow, our petition to stop you will be on the agenda for Monday night's City Council meeting, and we'll put an end to this wanton destruction of nature. In the meantime, here's a restraining order to keep you off this property.
All of these kids then return to the park where the people have started construction. Let me tell you, this is not an OSHA regulated workplace. There's shit everywhere. There's just a bulldozer coming in. No one's monitoring these kids. A dog gets in like the barrel of a bulldozer and like the mechanic guy lifts him up. "You're going to jail, bud." Anyway, at this point, we cut back to the Odyssey. He is now freed from the Isle of Calypso. Apparently, Wishbone just like swims home. He's just fucking out of here. He's like, "Bye," and leaves. We check in on Penelope in Ithaca and we see the suitors just in the halls of Odysseus punching each other in the face for fun. Truly, I've never seen more hetero behavior in my life. Anyway, did I mention that we just skip over all of the Odyssey? It doesn't matter. They're given the challenge. They, try to string the bow. The fucking dog runs in and Telemachus runs up to the dog and he goes, "Dad, where have you been?"
Dad!
Son.
Where have you been?
Like, this dog is his fucking father. Also, he's never seen this dog before. I don't. All of the suitors are trying to string and shoot the bow. The dog is able to do it no problem. Also, this bow is like a little like rinky dinky like toy bow. So like all of these grown men are like, trying to do this. This dog picks up the bow and shoots it. First of all, instead of holding it like a bow, like this, he can't because he's a dog, so he has to turn it sideways, like fucking like clocking a gun. He puts his little puppy paws on the front and then he puts like the string in his mouth and he pulls it back and he shoots it. And it goes through all the axes. It is the single greatest archery scene I've ever seen in my life. I would love for Blumenich to recreate that with his dog. Give your dog an arrow. Now, Odysseus, aka Wishbone the dog, and Telemachus go through and they beat the shit out of the suitors silly style. It's just fucking like Looney Tunes level of violence where they're just like pulling the rug out from under people.
Have a nice trip. See you next fight.
Whacking them on the head with stuff. Also, at one point, the dog literally just pulls like the Futurama Zoidberg and goes like whoop, 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 whoop. Whoever voices this dog is incredible. Good job, fella. You did a great job. Anyway, after we have maimed and killed all of the suitors, we cut back to real life where these kids are fighting for their civil liberties. They are at a local town council meeting protesting the building of this fast food establishment. Wanda is there supported by her big group of lesbian arborist society friends. They've all got signed. They're protesting. They look so gay. And they have the kids all go up there and, you know, like give their speeches at the town hall meeting to go against the quote, Suitor Development Corporation. That was a wonderful touch. I love that. One of them is like, you know, I used to like fast food, but fast food can only last you a few minutes and the tree can last forever. So we should keep the tree. The girl goes up and gives like a heartwarming speech. They give her like a standing ovation. Everyone cheers. The last kid, he goes up on the stand and is like, I used to go to this park all the time with my dad and now he's dead and the park is all I have left. So if you cut down this tree, it's like you're killing him all over again. They fucking fall for it. Of course they fucking fall for it. The kids, they win the day. The tree doesn't get cut down. Back in the Odyssey world, Wishbone is reunited with his human wife Penelope and his human son Telemachus, and he's crowned Doggy King. Whoever ran the costume department for this show deserves a fucking Emmy. Oh my god, they dressed that dog up in little cute costumes that were so fucking adorable. When he was killing the suitors, he had on like full Trojan battle armor. Oh my god, I loved it. Everything was so cute. Also, the entire time they were just like giving him snacks. Like, let's be clear, he was Odysseus, king of Ithaca, but he was also just a little guy who wanted some snacks. I do want to rate all of these on 2 categories, that being accuracy to the original Odyssey and also style points. Basically, how much fun they were. Like, did I enjoy this? Was it a good time? Now, for the accuracy of Wishbone, Homer Sweet Homer, I want to say that it was pretty high, even though it only captured a tiny portion of the story. I'll give it like a 6 out of 10 for accuracy. Obviously, they did have to tone a lot of things down for the kiddos, but I feel like the spirit of the Odyssey was still there, and it's just the important part. The rest of it doesn't matter. It's just him yapping for a really long time. Style points, however. I want to give this like an 8 out of 10. Again, those doggy costumes were doing so much. And also, I did like the story about the kids fighting against the Suitor Development Corporation. That was a nice touch. I really enjoyed it. Am I going to watch more Wishbone? No, probably not. I'm an adult. Ulysses, no one else can do the things you do.
Today, November 15th, 2020, marks the inception of the United States of Europe.
Oh no, not this one. Okay, next up, we have Ulysses, A Dark Odyssey. I wouldn't recommend that anyone watch this movie, honestly. It was the worst one I watched the entire time. I hated it, but I watched it nonetheless. Also, it was like 2 hours long. Okay, so hold on. I need to give you like the background of this movie because it does not make any sense. So this was made in 2018, and I think it's set in the year 2023 in the United States of Europe, and our main character, veteran soldier, now lives in a place called Taurus City. He has lost his memory of the past 7 years and is trying to, you know, like put the pieces together of what has happened in that time frame and also get back to his wife who is missing. It's not good. It opens with a scene of like Odysseus and Penelope, you know, like under the covers, like whispering to each other. They're like, oh, what are you doing? It lulls you into a false sense of security, so you need to turn your volume all the way up. Immediately cuts to gunfire. I've watched this at 2 separate houses with 2 separate dogs that I've been watching. Both times scared the shit out of both me and the dogs. I should have stopped there. I didn't stop there, but it's fine. The intro song was pretty sick, probably the best part of the movie right there. Ulysses, after he has his little war flashback, wakes up on a beach surrounded by women who are playing badminton. Anyway, these women take him into a house and there's a weird old man in the house and he tells them a story about a fish, and then it cuts to 24 hours earlier. In this 24 hours earlier, we just see Ulysses naked running around in the streets, and they do in fact show his penis. Anyway, he breaks into, I guess, what is his old apartment looking for Penelope. Penelope doesn't live there. He just essentially commits a felony against the people who do live in there now, who are like, oh my god, who is this violent naked man who's breaking into our house and punching people and also stealing our things? It doesn't matter. Some other things happen. There's a mob boss who runs Taurus City. His name is Mr. Ocean. I shit you not. He is played by Danny Glover from the Lethal Weapon movies. Noted actor Danny Glover. for is in this movie. I don't know why. I think they spent all of the money paying him, probably. Nothing happens. They just talk about something. I don't know. Anyway, Ulysses is suffering from amnesia. Apparently, someone hated him so much that they abducted him, probably, you know, like struck him on the head. He can't remember anything. And now also Penelope is gone, and he is assuming that these people also abducted Penelope. So he's like, I gotta go get her back. So he is wandering around looking for Penelope. They go to the Greek district of Taurus City, and they talk to a shawarma man. Turns out the shawarma man is the Cyclops because one of his eyes is blind. He does not only sell shawarma, he also has a bondage murder dungeon in the basement where he abducts people who are addicted to drugs, bondage style, tortures them, and then kills them and cooks them and sells their meat as the shawarma. Anyway, he attacks Ulysses. Ulysses attacks him back. Ulysses wins. And then he tortures the Cyclops for information with one of those like electric meat cutting knives. That's fun. We cut back to Mr. Ocean, and it turns out Mr. Ocean took Penelope. Mr. Ocean is, in fact, Penelope's dad. Next up, back with Ulysses, he goes to a rave. This rave is with the rave master Aeolus, who looks like a drag king dressed up as Justin Bieber. Aeolus is a fucking wild card. This movie is entirely in English. Aeolus speaks in English, yet whenever he is speaking, there are English subtitles underneath them because they think you might have a hard time understanding him. I don't know why. Anyway, also there's a pair of cops that's after Ulysses. Aeolus wants Ulysses to be a drug runner for him and drop some drugs off while he is in the middle of his drug run. There's a standoff with the police officers who are after them. Ulysses kind of tackles one of them. Her gun goes off and shoots her partner, killing her partner. And instead of, you know, continuing to go after the criminal who you're after, who just attacked you and shot your partner, she just like holds her partner who's dying, and Ulysses just like stands there and looks at them. I feel like you have training for these sorts of situations. Anyway, she just lets him go. Also, apparently his name is Johnny. Ulysses Yuli is his like nickname from like his army days, but apparently his legal name is Johnny. Anyway, after that, a dog shows up with the cop, and I looked at the dog, and then I looked at the dog that I was watching, and I thought, how'd you get in there? Anyway, there's also a dog now who looks identical to the dog that I am watching currently, who's sitting right in front of me, sawing into the camera. Ulysses goes to the beach. He has a little breakdown because he just killed a cop. I don't know, but the drugs that he's supposed to deliver, he just takes them and whacks it with a stick and sends them flying. Ulysses goes back to the rave. King Aeolus is upset, and then the drag queen who was with Aeolus attacks him because Aeolus fucking sucks, and then she rescues Ulysses and his partner that he's been traveling with. There's a partner who's going with him the entire time. It doesn't matter who he is. Anyway, the drag queen saves them, gets in her tiny little pink car with these two men and drives them to a brothel. While in the car, she's saving Ulysses because Ulysses was nice to her once, and he's like, I have no memory of ever meeting you before in my life. And then proceeds to have the strangest kiss that I've ever seen in my life.
Good luck, Johnny.
Everything about it is uncomfortable. Anyway, they go into the brothel, and turns out the madam of the brothel is Circe. Ulysses and Circe go into a back room, and they just start getting all up in each other's business in a way that just made me deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable. She keeps on like touching his face with her nails.
Time to go.
Too much.
You can stay here. With me.
What? No! Why is he making those faces? Oh my god.
I'll protect you.
Oh my god. This is not as hot as they think it is. It's not at all, actually. I don't like this movie. Oh god, it was so weird. It also has the cringiest line that I've ever heard in my life, where she's like, she keeps on like scratching his beard with her nails. She's like all up in his face. She's like, "Where have you been?" And he goes, "In my head." This movie is 2 hours long. This is just at the halfway point. And I literally wrote down, the scenes with Cersei make me want to eject my soul from my body. And then she basically tells him that he needs to go to like hell, to the underworld. Turns out hell is a nightclub. This is my accurate version of hell. That is a nightmare scenario for me in particular. Tiresias is a tattoo artist who lives under the nightclub, who also has an obsession with cats. This is not explained. I think she's just meowing a lot. Anyway, she drugs Ulysses and then gives him tattoos while he has like a Jimmy Neutron-esque, brain blast flashback to his days in the war. Anyway, we see him. He is in the war. He's going around with his fellow soldier, who's, his partner now, who he's been running around with trying to fix all of this stuff. While in the war, he walks in on a hostage situation. They, take out all of the men with guns, try to save this girl who is being held hostage. A child picks up the gun and shoots the girl in the head, and Ulysses murders that child, murders him real good, and then is like, "Oh my god, I killed a child." Backup arrives, and his friend, throws himself in front of Ulysses and shields him and gets riddled with bullets. Ulysses snaps out of it and they make their way out of there. At one point, he drops the friend and then he gets shot in the head. Anyway, we cut back to the friend in real life. After they escape from hell, the nightclub, because the party gets shut down, we see his friend is on the sidewalk talking to him. Turns out the friend is a figment of his imagination. He actually did, in fact, die in war, and this is just part of his psychological breakdown. Anyway, the friend is gone. The friend never made a difference. I do not know what his name is. It will never come up again. At this point, I made a note that there's still 30 minutes left of this movie. Sunk cost fallacy, baby. I have to keep going. The only thing that was keeping me going at this point was the promise that I made to myself that as soon as I finished watching this movie, I could watch Ulysses 31, which we'll be talking about later. Don't you worry. Don't you worry about that. Anyway, at one point, there is a shot of feet. I don't know whose feet it is, but someone's tootsies were out on screen. Ulysses is wandering around. He is still kind of on drugs a little bit, and then he gets hit by a car. Out of this car pops out a woman who looks like Amy Adams, who turns out to be Calypso. Anyway, he's like, "I gotta get out of here," and she's like, "I hit you with my car, you have to come with me." And she kind of abducts him and takes him home. Once he is at home with Calypso, he wants to leave, and he literally runs and jumps off a cliff into the ocean. And now we are back into our present day setting. That is how he ended up in the water, where he was fished out by the women playing badminton, and he went and talked to the old man who had a weird fish story. Oh, the cops. The cops are trying to take down Mr. Ocean. Apparently, Ulysses used to work for Mr. Ocean. He was like his number one guy, and also married to his daughter, Penelope. But too many people liked Ulysses. They thought he was going to be, like the next head honcho. They thought he could take over after Mr. Ocean. Mr. Ocean didn't like this. So he kind of put out a hit on Ulysses, but was like, get rid of him. I literally wrote down, they're at the opera. It doesn't matter. I want this to be over. The opera happens. At some point, Ulysses goes up on stage, and there's a very, very weird reunion with Penelope on stage in front of a crowd at the opera, and she introduces him to their son, Nicholas, and then he gets shot. And anyway, the police cart him off. They take him to a psychiatric hospital. I guess they get Mr. Ocean for being a mob boss. Anyway, the cop quits her job and she ends up keeping the dog. That's it. That's the end of this movie. Okay, for accuracy to the Odyssey, I can't tell if this is better or worse than Wishbone because it did have more things. However, I hated it. Actually, accuracy, I want to give it a 7. Style, -2. I hated it. I hated it so much. Everything about this movie was a decision, and that decision was a mistake in the eyes of God, which is me. I'm never going to think about this movie again.
Smurf along with me. Simple as can be.
I have never seen an episode of the Smurfs in my life, and now I have seen two. By the way, when I was also looking for all of these movies, I did find an incredible list of a bunch of media that has references to the Odyssey in them. So if you want to go watch all of these movies yourself, here you go. Take a gander. Now, on that little list that I mentioned, it had specifically said the Smurf Odyssey is not really about the Odyssey. It's more like Jason and the Argonauts. And I was like, I'll just check it out anyway. Maybe they're wrong. Nope, they're not wrong. It has nothing to do with the Odyssey. Anyway, I watched it, so I'm going to talk about it here. Basically, Zeus has a kid named Hermes, I think, and Hermes wants to be a god. I don't know. I think Zeus is embarrassed by him, but he's like, you got to go do an epic quest, and then you can have your god status. I made a specific note about one point in this episode. I'm not trying to, like, be a dirty little freak and try to make a kid's show unnecessarily vulgar. I want you to know that I was looking at my computer trying to do research, and I just heard Hermes the child saying, "Harder, Peggy, harder." And I look up and I see this child thrusting his crotch in the horse's face. I don't know how I could possibly make a video and not mention that. Like, what am I supposed to do with this information? You put that in the show. They're the freaks here, not me. Anyway, as I mentioned, Hermes, I think, is like immortal because apparently Hera's immortal. Everyone else is a god, but Hera's not. I don't know why. Also, she kind of likes Zeus in this. That's an interesting take. Straight up, this is not about the Odyssey. The Odyssey is the journey that they're going on for Hermes to find the Golden Fleece. Literally the Golden Fleece. This is Jason and the Golden Fleece. They get on a boat. The boat is alive, and it's a woman making very straight people jokes about divorce and hating her husband.
Hermie, grab hold of that tiller or this boat will end up on the rocks, just like my first marriage.
Now, while they're going around, they do fight a monster that I think is supposed to be Scylla because it is a 6-headed water monster, but it also just kind of looks like a dragon. I don't know about that one. Also, all of these god bitches are bald. Our little Smurf gang and Jason and his flying Pegasus run into a Cyclops. While there is a Cyclops in the Odyssey and there is a Cyclops in this, I can't really give him points because he does not, in fact, eat any of the Smurfs. But I do want to give him points because he has the best scream that I've ever heard in my life.
But please don't eat us, Mr. Cyclops.
They go into some sort of tunnel and they fight an army of skeletons. They were in the cave fighting the bone army to get this magical shield that they could then bring to the Gorgons and it'll defend against Medusa and the likes of her sisters. Anyway, Hermes, the little fuck up that he is, he gets to the island with the Gorgons, literally trips and breaks the shield, rolls down the hill and fucking shatters immediately. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Medusa and her one sister come out of a hole and they're like, I think I'm uglier. And they're like, no, I think I'm uglier. And then he gives them a mirror and is like, here, now you can find out who's really uglier. But they don't freeze themselves with the mirror. They just fight over the mirror, battling about who's uglier. Anyway, they get the fleece. They get the fleece. That's the end of the episode. Now, once again, this had nothing to do with the Odyssey. However, I did see next up on this little playlist was an episode called Trojan Smurf. And I thought, it can't be any worse than the one I just watched, right? Anyway, this episode had equally nothing to do with the Iliad. There's a little brat who's a Trojan princess. She wants toys. I don't know. These grown men are in charge of taking care of her. She ends up getting one of the girl Smurfs as a doll, and then everyone else has to go save her, and then they get in a horse and then charge their way in. I don't know. And then she continues to be a little brat. Anyway, one of the suitors that she has in fact a little Hitler stash going on. And I thought that was just a great choice made by everyone involved. Anyway, speaking of white nationalists, happy 4th of July, everyone. I'm joking. Calm down. Hi, we're gonna have a little interlude about racism here. You thought you were gonna get away from it? No, you're wrong. There's always an educational part of these segments because I have to be like my mentor, Wishbone. Anyway, in my last video that I made, I had said at a few points that it was silly, funny, and kind of sad how all of these movies are about, you know, like gods in Egypt, and they're all played by white people. And I thought that was self-explanatory enough for people to understand, you why this was a crazy circumstance to be happening. Some people did not like to hear that. Now, look, I did not give like a thorough enough explanation as to why these things are inappropriate and should not happen anymore. That's on me. So anyway, I want to talk about that now. Why having white actors play non-white characters is a problem that still persists in media today, and how that is not an equal comparison to a non-white actor playing a traditionally white role. Buckle up with me. Stick with me on this. Anyway, in the US, there is a long history of people using blackface as a form of comedy to basically shit on African American people who were at the time enslaved or recently freed, and basically belittle them and treat them as less than human. Now, while this is most prevalent with African American people, this form of impersonation as comedy have been used against people of all different races as a form of basically like subjugation through humiliation, basically as a way to keep these already disenfranchised groups of people down. And look, I might not be the best person to talk about this. If you want to know more about all of these subjects, you can go to all of these incredible creators who will give you a much more, thorough background on the history of these situations. Now, this form of comedy has also been used throughout like film and television for decades. And this is something that is still a very big issue happening today, where instead of hiring, a somewhat new, rather unknown actor to play someone who they represent, they're like, let's get a white person and put them in makeup so that they look more like this ethnicity, and then we can kind of pass it off and everything will be cool. Hear me out. What if you don't do that?
Director Ridley Scott told Variety magazine he can't mount a $140 million film and say that my lead actor is Mohammed so-and-so from such and such.
Yeah, you needed the white-hot star power of whoever the fuck this guy is.
One of the main issues with this is that if you're trying to portray a story accurately, if you're trying to capture, the emotions and plight of a certain people, hear me out, you hire someone who has gone through those things. Yes, I don't necessarily think this is the actor's fault. They're hired for a role and they're doing their best. However, casting directors, producers, directors, people running the movies, try a little harder. Like, you can find good actors everywhere. They don't have to be the same, 20 names in Hollywood that you see all the time. It's not that much of a draw to see them. Hire a new actor in the correct demographic who could be a huge big name actor later on, as long as you give them a chance. One movie that does an absolutely incredible job of hiring people of a correct ethnicity for the characters that they're playing is Night at the Museum. I'm not even fucking joking. This movie's awesome. For example, you're looking for someone to play an Egyptian pharaoh, you hire an Egyptian actor, that being Rami Malek, now an Academy Award winner. And look, they look like the historical figures that they're portraying. You didn't need to put them in, tan colored makeup to make them look the parts they're playing, because they already look like that. Also, I can't even begin to start on all of the positive psychological impacts that you have of people seeing themselves represented in film and media in a positive light with people who look like them. I literally wrote my entire undergrad thesis on this specific topic. It was 46 fucking pages long. I could go on this forever. However, we have to circle it back around. Anyway, bringing this all back around to the new Odyssey movie, there is quite the stir up about people upset that Lupita Nyong'o, a Kenyan woman playing Helen of Troy, a Greek woman. Let me tell you right now, anyone who has a problem with this casting, it's not because they think she's wrong for the role because of her acting prowess. She has an Oscar. They don't like it because she's black. That's why people are upset. And if you're thinking, you just gave this entire speech about how people should be cast based on how they look for these roles, I want to give a caveat to that. People of color deserve the respect to play their own characters with respect. However, at the same time, roles do not specifically need to be tailored for white people. Let me tell you, in ancient Greece, Africa still existed. Crazy, right? If you want to read the Odyssey, in the beginning of this book, they talk about how Poseidon is literally just hanging out in ancient Ethiopia, which is North Africa. It wasn't only white people there were also people of different races around, because let me tell you, they still existed at that time. Also, there's like a complete disparity in the way these two situations are handled. If a white person is cast as a non-white actor, it's like, hey, I think there's a problem with that. Maybe you shouldn't have cast them. Try casting someone new for once. On the opposite side of things, if a person of color is cast in a traditionally white role, they get death threats. These two things don't really seem even in my mind. So sue me if I'm critical of white people sometimes. Also, I'm white. Hear me out on this one. Lupita Nyong'o is actually the perfect casting for Helen of Troy. First off, Helen of Troy is described as an incredibly beautiful and talented woman. Lupita Nyong'o is an incredibly beautiful and talented woman. She's got the acting chops. Let her cook, guys. You want to see how good of an actress she is? Go watch Us. She fucking kills it in that movie. Oh my God, she's so terrifying. She's so good. She does such a wonderful job. She should have gotten another Oscar for that movie. If people say that they're against this acting choice because, you know, she doesn't look the part, I have not seen a single fucking person complain about Jon Bernthal not being a ginger while he's playing Menelaus, the most famous ginger in the world. Don't you fucking come at me with that shit. Also, the same people who have a problem with Lupita Nyong'o also have a problem with Elliot Page. It's not that he's a man who's playing the role of a man in a movie about men. It's not the fact that Christopher Nolan hired an actor who he's previously worked with for a new and upcoming movie, like he does every single fucking time. They just don't like that he's trans. That's it. Genuinely, if you have like an actual constructive criticism about any of these actors, any of them at all in the movie, that's fine. You cannot like a casting choice if the underlying issue behind all of this is that you just don't like them because they are a person of color or they're in fact trans or queer. You're just an asshole. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I can't wait to see the Odyssey. I'm so fucking excited. I can't wait to see Lupita Nyong'o fucking kill it and Elliot Page fucking kill it. And also Jon Bernthal. Jon Bernthal's such a good actor. Also, I don't know that much about Jon Bernthal as a person, but if for some reason you think that him playing the Punisher, being, you know, a fascist icon is gonna put him on your side of this scenario, I think you're gonna be wrong. Actually, you want to talk about other Jon Bernthal movies that's really good? A movie called Wind River. Wind River is such a fucking good movie. It's a story about a murder mystery that happens on a Native American reservation, also featuring actors of Native American heritage playing Native American characters. Wow, insane. What a crazy idea. Anyway, Jon Bernthal kills it. Elizabeth Olsen also fucking kills it. It's incredible. Y'all should go watch that movie. Anyway, my little rant is over. We're back to goofy fun time. If you have any racist comments that you want to leave down below, I will fucking block you.
In constant sorrow.
All right, back to my bullshit. Oh Brother Where Art Thou is an adaptation of the Odyssey set in the Jim Crow South. See my segue here? It all comes back around. If you're not from the US and you don't know what that means, it was a time in US history between like the end of the Civil War and like the 1960s civil rights movement, where Black people were basically still treated incredibly horribly, had no rights and freedoms, but were now seen as technically people. But anyway, this movie takes place in the Jim Crow South in the 1930s, and is such a fucking good time. Now, if you've ever seen this movie before, you're probably thinking, what the fuck is this movie doing on this list? It doesn't deserve to be here. You're right. It's not a shitty movie. However, it is weird, and also I love this movie and I wanted to watch it. I originally was not going to even bother watching this movie because I just know everything about it. But anyway, my mom really wanted to watch it because it's her favorite movie in the world, so we watched it. It's so fucking good. It is written and directed by the Coen brothers and stars George Clooney, John Turturro, Tim Blake Nelson, John Goodman, and Holly Hunter. It is so goddamn good. Now, I will say, if you did not know that this was an adaptation of the Odyssey going into it, you might have a little trouble seeing that because it is so 1930s US flavored. However, it is a great time. This is the story of Ulysses Everett McGill, a man who has been imprisoned, and he breaks out of prison with two of his co-inmates in order to find some buried treasure. Along the way, they take down the Klan. As we learn later in the movie, Everett, the main guy, George Clooney, our man, our Dapper Dan man, was originally arrested and put in jail for forging an attorney's license so that he could act as a fake prosecutor. Perfect. That's absolutely something that Odysseus would do. This movie really does just capture like the aura that is Odysseus being a very charming, charismatic shit stirrer. Everything about this is like so incredibly well done. These guys, they escape from prison. Prison, I believe in this scenario, is an allegory for the underworld. I'll get back to that later. On their way out of prison, they meet this man who's like working on a little seesaw going down the railroad tracks, and he gives them a prophecy of the future. Everett's just like, well, that's a bunch of horseshit, and they get off, and they are constantly on the run from the cops because once again, they broke out of jail. Some shenanigans happen. They run into a group of women, you know, singing in the water, and they turn out to be sirens, and then they turn Pete into a horny toad. And then they see a man who's the Cyclops, who's John Goodman, and he's a Bible salesman, and wouldn't you know it, he's a piece of shit. And then he attacks them, and he kills Pete the Frog, steals all their money, and then basically turns out Pete wasn't a frog because magic doesn't exist. It was just a frog, and he got recaptured by the police, and then they go back and they break him out of jail again. Anyway, they sing a lot. It's great. They run into a man named Tommy who supposedly sold his soul to the devil in order to be able to play music real good, and oh my god, he does. They get a recording deal for a song that's a fucking banger that I do in fact have on my phone. They also run into a man named George Nelson, who is a bank robber who they end up going along with for a while. He's chilling, he's robbing banks, and then during the middle of a police chase, he turns and shoots a bunch of cows. I believe that this is an analogy for the men of Odysseus' ship killing Helios's cows. Feel me? Okay, we got the sirens, we got the Cyclops, we got the cows, we've got Penelope. Penelope, his wife, is back at home. She is called Penny in this. I have seen this movie so many times, never have I once realized that her name was Penny, and it's adorable. Penny is looking to get married. She is engaged to a man who is very tall. She also has 7 kids. Her and Everett have 7 daughters. That is wild. They are all under the age of 7. They were getting busy. Turns out Everett, this entire time, there actually was no secret treasure map. He just wanted to break out of jail so that he could get back home to Penny to stop her marriage from happening because he still loves her. But she's like, we're fucking divorced. You lied. You were in jail. I don't need that. My 7 daughters don't need that. I'm getting a new husband. He's bona fide. Anyway, at one point, the clan abducts Tommy. They go to kill him. Everett, Pete, and Delmar infiltrate the clan, and they take it down. Oh, there's also a political campaign that's going on this entire time between Homer Stokes and Governor Menelaus, getting the constituents involved and whatnot. Turns out Homer is a member of the clan. They basically go to this banquet, and the Soggy Bottom Boys, that's their singing group.
God damn! This is Soggy Bottom Boys!
They go and perform on stage, and then Homer gets up there and gives like a racist rant about how they're about how they're not white, and he's like, actually, I'm a member of the Klan. Anyway, turns out the people of Mississippi didn't like that because they like their music, and they haul him out of there on a fucking log pole. Governor Menelaus then is like, I don't care that you were criminals in the past as long as I can use you all to my political gain. He pardons them once and for all. They have a great time and they sing a song, and then Everett gets back together with his wife because he is now no longer a criminal. He has been freed of all charges. But she is like, I want my wedding ring. It is in the family cottage. It's in the schiffer robe, and you gotta go get it because I'm not getting married without that wedding ring. So Everett, Pete, and Delmar go to the family cottage out in the woods, and they are captured by the law. The warden that has been chasing them this entire time, who I believe is an allegory for Poseidon, he is like, I don't care that you've been pardoned. We didn't get the radio, so I don't care. And then he goes to kill them, but then the valley floods. By the way, the whole treasure map idea was that they had to get to the valley before it was flooded to fill it with hydroelectric power so that they could get the treasure and be rich. Great. Anyway, the valley floods at the perfect time and none of them are killed. However, the schiffer robe is gone. Anyway, Ulysses brings back a ring to Penny and he's like, here's your wedding ring. Let's get married again so our 7 daughters can have a daddy. And she's like, that's not my ring. She's like, that must be one of Aunt Betsy's rings. She's like, I thought it was in the schiffer robe. And she's like, it must have been in the other one. Then she's like, I'm not getting married without that wedding ring. And he's like, damn it, woman, I don't care. We're getting married again. She's like, no, I'm gonna count to 3. She's like, I set my mind to it. I'm gonna count to 3. And she's like, walks off. And then there's just a fucking trail of kids going behind her. They walk over these train tracks. And then there's the little guy on a seesaw going down. I've seen this movie far too many times. The music is so goddamn good. I love it. Did not make any sense. I didn't take any notes for this because once again, I just know it. I do believe that prison is an allegory for the underworld. Why? Because when they escape prison, they see the seer on the seesaw railroad machine. This man is blind and he gives them a prophecy. I believe he is Tiresias. Once again, when it circles all the way back to the end, that is Tiresias, fulfilling the prophecy, going on his mosey way down. Also, after Pete is recaptured and re-put back in jail, Delmar and Everett go by him on the road and they see him and they make eye contact and they think that's him and then they're like, no, that can't be him, he's dead. This is basically their version of Odysseus seeing his fallen comrades once again in the underworld. When he travels there, they see their fallen comrade, that being Pete the horny toad. However, he's not actually dead, don't worry about it. He was in fact a horny toad. Do not seek the treasure.
We thought you was a toad. Do not seek the treasure.
Anyway, Pete dancing at the concert is great. I love it. One thing I really did like is how this movie showed interspersed dynamics of religion being used within politics to weaponize faith against people, especially in the South, a still traditionally very religious community. And basically how they also weaponized the fame that the Soggy Bottom Boys had for their own personal doings. It doesn't matter what the politicians believe. It doesn't matter, how shitty of people they are, as long as they can do, a good thing for God and or the famous people who you like, that's who you're gonna vote for, right? Isn't that fucked up? That's how American politics work. Also, Everett is an atheist. I think that's very funny. He also does pray to God a few times. In those scenarios, it does work out for him because he is favored by Athena, but he's still an atheist and he's like, no, there's a completely logical explanation for this. They were planning on flooding this valley any day now. Overall, I would say on accuracy, O Brother Where Art Thou gets I want to say a 6. It's not supposed to be a 1-to-1 adaptation. It's an interpretation of the Odyssey with elements of the story in there. Style points, it gets a 10. I love it. I love that movie so much. It was so fun. Also, I feel like it really captured the vibes of what was going on. It's this man trying to get back home to his wife and he's just the biggest piece of shit around. Oh yeah, going back to O Brother Where Art Thou. First of all, my dad, a man who has graduated from high school and from college, made the claim to me that he has never heard of the Odyssey before. And I said, you mean the Odyssey, like the book by Homer? And he said, is it a book? I wouldn't know. They didn't have that when I was a kid. Anyway, he also watched O Brother Where Art Thou with me and my mom. Before the movie, we once again explained that this was an adaptation of the Odyssey, go through the whole rigmarole of him not knowing what the Odyssey is. Anyway, after the movie was done, he very confidently said while the credits were playing, this movie was adapted from the Homer play in '89. And I said, what? Anyway, his mind is a mystery to me. Still doesn't know what the Odyssey is, despite having seen this movie multiple times and also me explaining it to him and also Epic the Musical. It makes no impact. Speaking of Epic, now this is apparently an adaptation of the Odyssey that is a musical made by some guy named George. I've listened to some of the songs. It's kind of okay. 3 out of 10. I'm just kidding. Anyway, we all know what Epic the Musical is. If you don't know what Epic the Musical is, it is an adaptation of the Odyssey made by one Jorge Rivera Herons. It is so goddamn good. You should go listen to it. I am in this situation because of that, because I love it so much. Also, today, currently, that I am filming right now, July 5th, this is, in fact, my 2-year anniversary of listening to Epic the Musical for the first time. It has made my life immensely worse. Anyway, I love it deeply. You should go listen to it. It's so good. In terms of ratings, on accuracy, I would give Epic the Musical probably a 9. It does a really good job of cutting out the unnecessary points of the Odyssey. By the way, the Odyssey, so much of this information is unnecessary. It's just a man yapping for a really long time. Epic does a really good job of cutting it down to the bare bones of the interesting parts and then throwing away the rest of it. So that's great. I do want to give it a 9 for accuracy. Pretty good. Style points, 10 out of 10, 1,000 out of 10, a million out of 10. I love it so much. We're moving on. Next up, we have an animated version of the Odyssey that was made in 1987. This movie is 40 minutes long, and I was really interested to see this because I was like, that is about 2 minutes per chapter of the original Odyssey. How are they going to shorten this? And also, how are they going to make this for kids? I have a lot of questions, but I can't wait to see how it pans out. Anyway, badly. That's how it pans out. This movie starts off strong with a shot of an eagle flying over, the ocean. It's another fucking bald eagle. I don't know what it is with people trying to use bald eagles in ancient Greece. Why are you doing that? Anyway, we're up on Mount Olympus. We see all the gods gathered there. Poseidon has beef, and Zeus and Poseidon look exactly the same. They are identical except for their beards. That is the only way you can tell them apart, and their faces terrify me. Zeus, or Athena, basically gives a very long exposition of what actually happens in the Trojan War, and I do gotta say, they do a really good job. And then one thing I did want to note is that they actually do show people getting killed on screen, which I thought was interesting. Again, this is a children's cartoon. However, that is the last of it. No one else dies on screen after this point. It was fine because I guess they were enemies. I don't know. During the exposition of the Trojan War, it shows Odysseus in the Trojan horse, getting his way into Troy. They should have chosen literally any other color for his tunic because it looks like he is just fanning his ass out for all of the men right behind him, looking for his own Trojan horse, if you know what I mean. I literally wrote that down in my notes. I hate that. Actually, it's really funny. I'm awesome. I never make a bad decision. The character design in this movie is very unique in that I don't like how anyone looks, except for Athena. Athena looks great. Everyone else, heinous. I don't like looking at them. Now, as much as I have personal gripes with the way all of these people look, I gotta say, they really did capture the ideal male form. That being thick necks, slim waists, no foreheads. Every single man looks like that, but also horrifying to look at all the same, and I don't want to look at them. After Odysseus and his men left Troy, they show up on the island of the Cyclops, and the Cyclops, goes to eat them. But once again, this being a children's cartoon, they can't show him very graphically eating people, so he just picks up the men he puts them in a little goodie bag to go, and then carries them out and eats them off screen, apparently. Also, again, they don't want to show him being violently stabbed in the eye with a giant stake, so instead, Odin and his men, craft the giant spear to look like this. It basically, if this is the end of the screen, it just goes, ha! And then you just see the Cyclops going, completely unrelated to it. There's no blood, there's no gore, and then he just has a little bandage boo-boo over his eye for the rest of the time. In this adaptation, it is so funny because they don't have time to go through the whole, debacle of Odysseus calling himself nobody because, again, it is only 48 minutes long. So when the Cyclops asks him what his name is, he's just like, I'm Odysseus. Anyway, that's fine. Dox yourself, king, whatever. The men end up escaping from the cave. They get themselves past a very saucy-looking Cyclops. Anyway, they end up on Circe's island. They know it's Circe's island. They're like, we should go talk to the witch. And Eurylochus is literally like, I volunteer. I have a way with women. And Odysseus is like, go kill him, tiger. Anyway, they get turned into pigs. However, they're not actually pigs. They are man body pig head crawling around on the ground like little piggies. But again, full man body giant pig head. Little piggies crawling around. Write that one down. Anyway, Odysseus is like, how are we gonna get out of this? Prays to Athena. Athena shows up and is like, here's some Molly. And then fucking flash bombs her way out of there. Totally fine. Odysseus, does the whole thing. Circe immediately caves and then is like, why don't you go to the underworld? So they get out of there. They head on down to Hades town. On his way to Hades, Odysseus is stopped at, the gates of hell by Cerberus, who in this case only has 2 heads and also speaks in human English. His job as a guard dog is completely redundant because he goes up to Odysseus and is like, you can't be here. I'm the guardian of hell. And Odysseus is like, let me pass. And Cerberus goes, okay, and just lets him by. Anyway, he makes it to the underworld and he sees Tiresias, who looks like Snake Wizard Rasputin. That was a weird choice. Anyway, he gets out of there. They go see the sirens. The sirens have the most off-putting singing I have ever heard in my life. I actually wanted to turn off my entire computer and throw it out the window when I heard them singing. Up next on their list of enemies is Charybdis and Scylla. They make their way past Charybdis in the little whirlpool. They get to Scylla. Scylla is straight up a dragon. She's a dragon with 6 heads and also the proportions of Volu, the dragon god from Wind Waker, meaning she's got a tummy and a skinny little neck. A lot of skinny little necks. Anyway, that goes just about as well as expected. And then the crew find themselves on the Isle of Helios's cows. Now, in this version, they all know that these cows belong to Helios. Actually, in this version, they belong to Zeus. There are no extra gods in this. They all belong to Zeus. Anyway, they're like, of course we know they're Zeus's cows. We wouldn't want to eat them because they're Zeus's cows. We would never betray you, Odysseus. And these are just like the cutest little 80s cartoon cows you've ever seen. Oh my god, you want to pick them up and you want to snuggle them.
You've got nothing to worry about, little friend. We won't harm you.
Anyway, the men get hungry. That goes about as well as one could predict, and, you know, Zeus personally fries Eurylochus to a crisp. It is fun, it is fine. They set the boat on fire, and Odysseus drifts off, you know, holding onto a piece of plywood. Now, as I mentioned, this is a short movie. It is only 48 minutes long. While Odysseus is floating in the ocean, attached to a little raft that Athena told him to hold on to, there is a full 95 seconds of montage going back and showing the crewmates in their previous journey that they had together that's just reusing clips of the movie. We are less than 40 minutes into this movie and they're like, you know what we need? A reminder of everything that's happened. Anyway, this is where it gets weird. There's no Calypso in this story. Odysseus washes up on a beach where there are some women dancing, and one of them is named Princess Penelope. That started to raise some flags in my head. Anyway, Penelope takes Odysseus and brings her to her father Alcinous to recount his tales. Now, this is actually something that does happen in the Odyssey. However, this is not Penelope. This is Princess Nausicaa. So this is a real situation that happens. However, Penelope should not be here. A messenger now comes in and tells Alcinous, after they listen to Odysseus yap for a really long time, informs him that the sacrifice for this year has been chosen. And Odysseus is like, what the fuck are you talking about? And the king is like, oh, well, every year, us being an island nation, we have to sacrifice one young woman to the sea god Poseidon to make him happy so that he will protect our ships throughout the year. Turns out, the sacrifice for this year is Princess Penelope herself. Oh no! What are we gonna do? So Odysseus is like, I can't let that happen. Why? I don't know. Because he thinks she's hot, that's why. Anyway, they literally tie Penelope to a stake and like put her right in the tide so that Poseidon can, you know, come and grab her. Odysseus doesn't like this, so he goes to save her. Odysseus and Poseidon literally start wrestling around in the water. Poseidon turns into a lion, a snake, a boar, a fire-breathing dragon, a shark, and then back into his normal human godly self. Why? I don't know. Anyway, they're wrestling around for a bit. It's weird. Poseidon yields, and Odysseus, being the winner, is like, Penelope, you're so beautiful and young and fertile. I must have you as my wife. Will you marry me? He asks her this while she's still tied to the pole, immediately in front of Poseidon. So the implication being, if she says no, you're going to be sacrificed to Poseidon still. So she's like, yeah, I'd love to. That sounds great. They get onto the docks to go back to Odysseus's home of Ithaca. Penelope's mom literally says, come back with my grandchildren. That's the end of the movie. Wild. Alright, this movie. On accuracy, I was gonna say it was pretty good until we got to the end. The departure throws off the whole vibe of the movie. So I want to give it maybe like a 4 out of 10 for 5. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 for accuracy. However, for style points, I will give them also a 5 because there was no style. It was just the Odyssey and then things got weird. I don't know how to feel about it. Anyway, why a bald eagle? Okay, hi. My microphone turned off at some point. I don't know how long ago that was. Anyway, my apologies. I'm the worst professional there is. Anyway, next up, the strangest movie on this list. This new movie we have is entitled Odysseus and the Isle of Mist, or in some cases, Odysseus, Voyage to the Underworld. It is called both titles. I do not know why. However, it is starring the guy from The Mummy who plays the mummy. That's great. That's fun. I love that. Also, it has the dad from Teen Wolf, Allison's dad from Teen Wolf, Mr. Argent. He's in this movie. I was searching for the letterbox reviews for this movie, and look, I don't speak Portuguese, but I know gay twink when I see it. And let me tell you, after translating this, it is absolutely correct. There is some homosexual tension going on there between him and Eurylochus. What can I say? This movie is so goddamn weird. It starts off with Homer recounting the story of the missing chapters of the Odyssey. So you know that it's just all gonna be bullshit from here. Anyway, turns out back in the day, back in this beautiful mystical land, Homer, as a strapping young lad, he was a member of Odysseus's crew. Now, this lost chapter, I guess, picks up right before the Sirens. That's the only place that I could possibly put it, because they do, in fact, mention the Sirens. And while they're on the boat, they are like, oh, the Sirens are coming here. You gotta plug your ears with earwax, and you gotta tie me to the pole and everything. Now, at this point, I was thinking this was kind of a cool take, because the sirens are not like the mermaids that you constantly see in media. They are like the flying type of sirens, which were accurate to Greek mythology. However, they're not sirens, they're demons attacking the ship. Oh my god. Also, one of the reviews that I read for this was basically saying how it was basically just like weird Christian propaganda placed in an Odyssey setting. And that really, really made its way prominently through my mind through the entire watching of this movie. Now, once Odysseus and his crew, after a few of them got eaten by the demons, they make their way onto land of the weird island that they were passing. It had a weird pink mist around it, aka Odysseus and the Isle of Mist. That's the mist. Anyway, they hear a calling to them and they go to the island. Now, in his crew, there's only like 5 people left. There's Homer, there's Eurylochus, there's Polites, who's still alive at this point, and then there's a man who looks like Mark Cucurella, the soccer player. For the rest of this, I will be referring to him as Cucurella. And then some other guy whose name I don't know and I don't care about, don't worry about it. He dies in about 2 seconds. Anyway, Homer is just the weirdest little guy around. He is fucking patient zero at Weenie Hut Jr. The way he acts is insane. It was like the director was like, let's make him as much as like a nerd sniveling little idiot as we can, and we're just gonna say he's Homer because he's a writer, he's a nerd, he likes books and learning. What a nerd!
You're the little one. Climb the tree, Homer. Guess it doesn't matter that I'm afraid of heights.
The actor does a great job because he's just so fucking weird. Like, they really hammer home the idea that he's a little wimpy man boy. When they're on the boat and Odysseus is like, you have to tie me to the pole so the sirens don't get me. He's like, Odysseus, I want to be tied to the pole with you. And then later, once they land on the island, Odysseus is like, oh, this log that you're keeping track of all of our stories, you know, did it survive the wreckage? And Homer's like, of course I have it right here with me. And he opens it up and he's like, oh, the seawater bleached all my notes. Anyway, the Isle of the Mist. It is an island that is just filled with a bunch of skeletons who are fixed to crucifixes stuck in the sand. They reveal that Mark Cucurella, his real name is Christos. Really, Cucurella Christos now has visions of all of their death if, you know, they continue on towards the island. He's like, I don't think we should be doing this. And they're like, no, we have to know what's going on. Anyway, Cucurella Christos stays behind by himself while everyone else ventures off to try to find the source of the demons who just attacked them. Anyway, these demons, they come back at night. The crew gets fucking destroyed by these demons. Everyone is actively dying. And also the CGI is atrocious and I love it. These monsters look so bad. Anyway, a mysterious woman comes out of the fog and she saves them from the demons and also heals all their wounds, except for the one guy whose name I did not know. He is in fact dead. Homer calls it the miracle of all miracles. The biblical imagery is insane. Also, they're like, are you the siren that was calling for us? And she just screams at them. So I'm taking that as a yes. They make an alliance with her where she's like, the demons won't attack me. And if you help me get off this island, I'll protect you from the demons. Eurylochus hates her. He does not trust her at all. Anyway, cut to Cucurella Christos is just like running around through the fucking wild. They keep on like cutting back to him and he's just having the worst fucking time of his life. He's just fucking sprinting through the woods, like crawling in the dirt. He runs into a literal bone pit and then stumbles upon what I can only describe as a Mordor-looking fortress surrounded by demons. Anyway, cut back to the crew. Eurylochus and Homer are just being so weird. They have such a strange relationship going on. It's like the nerd and the bully, who they're both gay, but the bully still bullies him, but they're gay. Anyway, it's fascinating to watch. I just need you guys to see this scene. This is every interaction they have, is this level of underlying homosexual tension and also bullying.
3 years since I tasted fresh spit swine.
I could eat it raw.
Homer, you have much to learn. Cooking is like making love to a woman. You must savor each stage.
And purchase all the ingredients.
Yes.
Anyway, the crew and this mysterious woman are all gathered around a campfire at some point, and one of them is like, let's tell Homer about our tales of the Cyclops, the time we ran into that guy with one eye and we beat him. This made me realize that Homer, in fact, did not go through the entire Iliad with them. This is just a guy who they found his wet ass out somewhere in the middle of the sea and just adopted him. Okay, anyway, Homer wakes up in the middle of the night and this mysterious woman is out there and she's talking to him, and she tells Homer that she was once kidnapped by a king and then she ran away, and then she was abducted again by someone else and put on this island. Now she's trapped here and that's why she wants to get off the island. Homer freaks out about this and kind of runs off. Athena later shows up for Odysseus and reveals that the woman who mysteriously saved them is in fact Persephone. And in this, she is full Persephone, goddess of death. She has been trapped on this island as punishment by the gods because she wanted to kill all of humanity. If you help her off this island, you're falling right into her trap. Don't trust her, even though she's very pretty. And oh my god, Athena also tells Odysseus that the gods have used in the past the Hellfire Cross to trap her here, and that the only way for Odysseus to kill her and basically get free of this island is to go find the Hellfire Cross and kill her with it. Also, she just throws in that the demons that are flying around, the little goblin guys, those are the children of Persephone and Hades. I don't know how they came up with that one. We're just moving on. Anyway, at this point, they make a plan to kill some of these demons in broad daylight. Anyway, they put Homer up in a tree, and then Odysseus jumps out of a full pool of blood in his undies, looking as fine as ever, and then they kill one of the demons. Homer then picks up a ring and is like, this is one of the rings of our fallen comrades, but the monster had it. He realizes that maybe the demons are like the reanimated monsters of their fallen comrades. So what happens after death? And then Paramedes is like, I don't ever want that to happen to me. If I'm gonna go out by a demon, you have to kill me first. I'm not gonna live my life like a monster. Cut back to Cucurella Christos just fucking legging it through a forest. He once again stumbles back into Mordor, but this time with a little more intention. Anyway, back to the rest of the crew. This weird mist rolls in and Odysseus gets jumped by a demon. However, Paramedes tries to save him and it just fucking lays into him and quote unquote steals his soul. The Christianity is so prominent. Odysseus kills him so that he won't turn into a demon as he requested, so you don't have to worry about that ever again. It will never come up. The demon flies away because the demon got away. Turns out it was just Persephone. She then goes back to the rest of the crew who are mourning their fallen comrade. She's like, what happened? You let the demons in? You must have done something. This is your fault. You broke the curse of protection that I had around here that was protecting all of us. What did you do? Cut to once again them walking through the forest and they run into none other than Cucurella Christos, losing his fucking mind. He's just freaking out. He's like, I've been hiding from the demons. I've had to cover myself in death. Like, I need to get away from them. Persephone is immediately like, no, he's cursed. You have to kill him now. She very slyly calls on the demons without anyone else noticing. And it just starts attacking Cucurella Christos. The gang think that throwing a tarp on top of the demon will help them save Cucurella Christos. This does absolutely nothing other than he dies under a blanket and he is literally torn limb from limb. Good job, team. Anyway, that's great. They go back to the little camp they had set up. Once again, a weird mist rolls in. Penelope shows up, and Odysseus is like, how can you be here? My wife, you're so far away. Penelope's like, it's really me. And he's like, tell me something the only real Penelope would know. And she brings up the whole story of the marriage bed. And he's like, it has to be you. And then they start plowing. The next morning, Odysseus wakes up, and he's like, I love you so much. And then he stabs her. Turns out it was Persephone masquerading herself as Penelope, and he was like, I knew it wasn't you the whole time. Are you sure about that? Persephone is not at all bothered by this because she's immortal, so stabbing her does not matter. And she also said, quote, "You've lent me the most powerful seed. Your mortal child now grows within me." Basically, her plan was to get impregnated by Odysseus so that she can have a child who she can basically manipulate later on as they grow up to be able to remove the Hellfire Cross from its resting place in Mordor so that she can be freed from the island. She's like, I don't need you anymore. I'll just do it myself. Feminism. She basically is like, hey, you can stay with me as my consort so that you, me, and Hades can have a little throuple going on. And Odysseus says that he would rather die, and he runs and jumps off a cliff. Now, him and the rest of the crew, they make their way out of there because Persephone is a bad lady. They basically disguise themselves with the scent of the dead, meaning they take some cloaks off of the corpses and they put them on, and then they head back into the volcano. And Homer makes the statement that they smell like garlic. Also, the only way that they can kill the demons is with a wooden stake. The demons are basically just vampires. This is never brought up. Anyway, they get into Mordor, pull the Hellfire Cross, which is literally just a sword that is stuck in the ceiling. Eurylochus pulls it out, completely fine. They're not being chased by any of the demons. The demons are in the cave, don't you worry. They're just a little off to the side. They're going to be chased, but Eurylochus is like, take the sword. Take Homer. Get out of here. I'll be our sacrifice. And everyone's just like, okay, great. And they leave him. The man proceeds to take off his shirt and then die. First of all, there was no immediate threat to this, and there was also no need to take off his shirt, but I love that he did that. Once they get out of the Mordor area, Persephone confronts them on the beach, and she's like, Odysseus, you will do what I tell you. He goes like he's going to kill himself with the Hellfire Sword. I don't know why. I don't know if he was supposed to be under some sort of spell or something, but then he just stabs her instead, and she explodes into a light beam like the fucking Avatar. Anyway, immediately afterwards, they're like, that was a wild tale. And Homer's like, I'm gonna publish this into my book. And Odie's like, ha ha ha, that sounds like a good plan, my comrade. They're on the beach. They literally turn around and a boat is just there. And I guess they just go home to Ithaca. I can only deduce that from the information that is given, which is not a lot. Anyway, Homer, as an old man in his writing, say that the demons fear the sign of the cross. I don't know if that's the religious cross or the Hellfire Cross or just wood and garlic. Homer, once again, in his writings is like, we still don't know a lot about these things or where they came from or what might have become of them. And then he just puts his book away, and it cuts back to the island of Paramedes waking up as a vampire demon monster. He growls at the screen, and then that's the end. Great! Anyway, that was a fun time that I had watching that. For accuracy points, I want to give this nothing. It gets nothing. Nothing about this was accurate. It can have a 1, actually. Odysseus was there. There were some characters who shared similar names. Anyway, that's about it. Style points, however, like a 3. Everything about this movie was so weird. It was a fun time, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, God, this seems like a made-for-TV movie from the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm pretty sure it was a made-for-TV movie by the Sci-Fi Channel. If you want to see weird Christian propaganda in the form of an Odyssey movie, I found just the one for you. Let's check on World Cup scores. Oh, they're at halftime, baby. Okay, let's get this done.
Ulysses, no one else can do the things you do.
We have, without a doubt, my favorite thing on this list. That being Ulysses 31. Hold on, I just have to read you the Wikipedia page for this because everything about this fascinates me. Ulysses 31 is a French, Japanese, Luxembourgian anime series based on the Greek mythology of Odysseus, set in the 31st century. When I learned that this was a real show that I had never heard of before, I immediately looked it up and heard what I can only describe as the best theme song I've ever heard in my life. It's so goddamn good. God, this show is so good. Okay, this show is 26 episodes long. Currently, I've only seen through episode 8 of this show, but I'm gonna watch all of them. Don't you even worry about it. I fucking love this show. But I just want to give you a rundown of like the first episode so that you can get the vibe of this show, because it is incredibly strange. Everything about it is fascinating. Ulysses 31 is the story of the Odyssey, but in the 31st century in space. Now, this starts off with Ulysses in the planet or space station of Troy, and Priam, the king of Troy, thanks them so much for helping protect Troy and is like, we'll send you on your merry way home, you and your beautiful son Telemachus. That's right, Telemachus was at war with his father. He is also blonde. That has no impact on the story. I just want to note that he is in fact blonde. Also, someone, I don't know who, gives Telemachus a robot. This robot is named Nono. He is my favorite character ever created, ever. He is so silly and weird. He serves absolutely no purpose. However, every single time he's on camera, he's just like off in the fucking corner, like face halfway cut off, but he's just making the same facial expression of like mouth open constantly. It makes no sense. Like, imagine I'm watching the show and just, I see this. That's his entire character. I love him. Anyway, after they leave the space station Troy with their entire crew of space military people, they are aboard the Odyssey. The Odyssey is the name of Ulysses' ship. Him and his entire crew, they're trying to make it back home to Earth. They are in fact Earth people. However, Telemachus gets kidnapped. I don't know why or how this happens, but I just put in my note, pull up the clip of Telemachus getting kidnapped. That shit is so silly.
Stand by for landing! No, look at that fantastic light!
It's coming at us.
Right through the screen.
It is in fact so silly. Anyway, Telemachus being kidnapped, he just wakes up in this holding cell and there are blue-skinned aliens in there with him. Turns out these aliens, their names are Numenor and Yumi. Numenor and Yumi are also being held captive by the same people as Telemachus, and that being the cult that worships the Cyclops, and the Cyclops steals children in order to take them and drain them of their power that can go back into feeding the cult. You're staying with me on this? Okay, great. Oh my god, y'all, the cult followers. They're the sheep. They're the sheep. I'm sick. Anyway, the quality of the video is not super great. However, I, for the life of me, cannot tell what the Cyclops is supposed to be. It looks like a giant robot tower that's like the Eye of Sauron, but it's kind of alive. I don't know. Also, there's a cult around it. That doesn't really make sense. However, that's great. That's fun. Ulysses, no one else can do the things you do. Oh yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the cult of the Cyclops. That's great. That's weird. Odysseus and the crew, they all follow Telemachus to try to rescue him from the cult of the Cyclops. Anyway, something that I do want to mention is just the plot is moving at a lightning pace. There's only, 24 minutes that each episode can take up, but it's literally just like one thing after another. They're going through it. If you look away for 2 seconds, you will be immensely confused. The animation and like the way that people speak is so fucking wacky. I just now realized that it's because this is translated and dubbed over in English, but it's so funny because they'll be saying something and then just have like a 5-second pause and then just cut to something else. Or they'll like chop people off like mid-sentence to like have the next person start talking. And it's so funny. Also, it has like that very endearing like 80s animation style of like the old like Scooby-Doo cartoons. Also, if you are going to watch the show, I do want to give you a huge warning. There is an immense amount of flashing lights that happen constantly. So just be aware of that if you have any photosensitivity. But other than that, you should absolutely go watch the show. The music in the show is also so fucking sick. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's awesome. I love it. Anyway, Odysseus and his crew show up on the island. They kill the Cyclops and it kind of shuts down the cult. And they get Telemachus back with his new friends Numenor and Yumi. However, the one cult leader is left and he's very disgruntled, and he calls upon Zeus to curse Ulysses to keep him from getting home. And Ulysses is like, what? A Greek god of the 31st century? How could that be possible? And then it cuts to just like the most terrifying like layover of like Zeus's face you've ever seen. For some reason, later on, Poseidon's giant face shows up. Poseidon pulls their ship into a like wormhole in order to trap them for killing the Cyclops. I don't know if the Cyclops is his kid in this version or if he was just like involved in the cult somehow. I don't know. I'll have to look onto the fan wiki for that. Anyway, he pulls them into the black hole and it sends them into the universe of Olympus. Everyone on the ship gets put into a Froman like comatose state until they can get to Hades, and then that will release them from this curse, and then they will be able to go home from Olympus back to Earth. Yeah, we following? Okay, great. Everyone on the ship is frozen except for Telemachus, Yumi, and Odysseus, and also Nono because he's a robot, and also we need Nono. Anyway, they play the outro song. It's a fucking banger. And also for some reason, the helmets that Ulysses and Telemachus have are like Power Rangers ass lion helmets on their heads. That's sick. This is the era of Voltron. Let's go. As I've mentioned, I've only watched like the 8 episodes of this so far. They're so funky and weird. They are pretty good about Greek mythology. Some of them are a little made up. Others of them are really like faithful to things that happen in the Odyssey or also Greek mythology in general. They did have a whole episode that was centered around like Aeolus. That was fun. They also had another one that was just about Sisyphus and his eternal punishment and suffering that he must go through. It's so much fun. If you love Greek mythology, you should definitely check this out. It's so weird. So for accuracy points, I want to say it's similar to O Brother, Where Art Thou because, you know, it's just the idea of the Odyssey. But I want to give it like I'll give it like a 4. Things are weird, things are different, but hey, the vibe is still there. Style points, 1,000. I love this show. It's so great. Last but not least, we've made it to the end. The movie that I was most excited for this entire time to watch because of one Letterboxd review. This is what started this entire thing, is because I was looking up weird mythology movies to watch and I saw a Letterboxd review that says, quote, "The most accurate part of this movie is that Odysseus is played by a gay porn star." What? Oh my god, it sent me on a spiral. I was like, I'm sorry. This is a movie, you say? Now, this is in fact the movie of Troy, the Odyssey, aka God Wars. It's sometimes called God Wars. I don't know why. In fact, they are correct. The man who plays Odysseus is an actor by the name of Dylan Vox, who is also in a bunch of adult films. I can only assume by the titles of the films that he's been in that these are in fact porn, because the titles are insane. First up, very top of his IMDb list is Triplets Fighting to Be My Son's Daddy. Next up, The Wrong Twin Got Me Pregnant. Next up, 99 Charms, 99 Heartbreaks. Next up, 2 Alphas Faded to Me. Anyway, in that one, he plays Greasy Man. I'm so excited to watch this movie. Anyway, I saved this movie for last because I was the most excited to see this. This movie is so goddamn bad. It's so funny. If you like watching shitty movies, you should check out this movie. Now, as I mentioned, this movie stars an adult film actor. I knew that going into this. He shows up on screen and I'm like, that's the guy. Immediately after that, they show a man who's just like in like shoulder armor, bare torso. I immediately got scared. I was like, oh my god, am I just gonna be watching porn? No, it's fine. It's not in fact porn. It might have been better if it was porn, I'm not gonna lie. Oh yeah, the setting that we're currently in is they are battling in Troy. This is Trojan horse. That's where we are in the story. Anyway, it's so bad. There's a flashback of him and Penelope in their bedroom, and I just like, I'm sorry. I don't want to rag on them for having, you know, a low budget, but what the fuck is this party ass city looking costume right here? You couldn't get a whole belt? This is really, you know, like setting the whole scene for what this movie's gonna be, and I can't wait. While he's back in Ithaca, they're talking about Agamemnon. I'm obsessed with everything about him. He looks atrocious. He's not in a lot of it, but when he is, oh my god. His fucking crooked ass armor, his mohawk, his visible tattoos that they tried to cover up but did not do a very good job of, his Australian accent.
The next time you see her, your name will be sculpted in the stones of history.
His facial expressions that he makes all the time, and also the way he walks. Oh my god, what a man. Also, apparently in this version, he's married to Helen, ? Anyway, we cut back to Troy. There's a woman leading Priam over to go look at the Trojan horse and be like, we should bring it back into the city. Anyway, this is Circe. She's a Trojan. That's fun. They bring the horse back into the walls of Troy. Circe, the witch goddess Circe, tells Priam to release the Kraken. Multiple times. They constantly talk about releasing the Kraken. The Krakens do not exist in Greek mythology. I think it was specifically made up for Clash of the Titans whenever that original movie came out, and then people just think it's a thing. That's fine. They say to release the Kraken like 8 times. Anyway, the Trojan horse gets brought in. Yada, yada, yada. Odysseus confronts Priam within, like, the walls of Troy. Priam pulls out a sword and just straight up shoots him with lightning. He then lays a curse on Odysseus for a very long and arduous journey home, for years of misery. And he's like, if you ever get back home, you know, the Kraken's gonna kill you, and also your family's gonna die horribly. He then rings a gong to summon the Kraken and then kills himself as a sacrifice. Cut to fighting happening in the middle of the square. Some woman just fucking jumps out of nowhere and starts doing like martial arts with a bow staff. Anyway, she's immediately killed by the tits out man. And then Circe from nowhere pulls out a bow and arrow and shoots this man in the heel. That's when I realized that the shirtless man is in fact Achilles. Anyway, moving on. Odysseus and his gang, they win the battle. Troy has fallen, and they take Circe as hostage, and they bring her on their boat to go home to Ithaca. It's a fucking rowboat. It's a fucking rowboat with a sail and room for like 4 people. Good news for them. There are only like 5 people upon this boat, so the size is not a problem. Bad news is the Kraken's fucking chasing them very, very slowly.
How do we defeat such a thing?
Oh my god. One side note that I want to make is that the pronunciation in this movie is all over the place. They call Athena Athene multiple times to the point where I didn't realize that they were actually talking about Athena. That's fine. They call Eurylochus Eurycles. There's Ithaca, which is Ithaca, I would assume. The man who plays Priam, whenever he calls Circe, he calls her Celsi. I had to put on the subtitles so that I could actually see if her name was Circe, and sure enough, it is. The main suitor is Antinous. The man who was originally married to Helen, who is Agamemnon's brother, is Menelaus. That's fun. That's very fun. I love that. No one has done any research for this at all. That's how all movies should be made. Anyway, oh, the Pink Island was in this movie. Oops. If I said in The Isle of Mist that the island was pink, I was lying. I was getting confused. I've seen too many movies in the past week and my brain is fried. Anyway, they pass by a pink island that has some weird fog going on around it. Do you see how I get confused? Anyway, this is the home of the Sirens, who will answer any questions that you have, like the fucking seer guy from A Court of Thorns and Roses. When did that happen? I don't know. Odysseus tells everyone to put, the wax in their ears, and Circe's like, I don't need to, I'm a woman. Their spells don't work on me. All right, fucking hetero, whatever you say. The Sirens basically tell Odysseus that he needs to go through the Pass of the Dead in order to get back home, and then he loses his marbles trying to get back home because he's like, it's Penelope in the mist. I think he sees Penelope in the mist. He's like, it's Penelope in the mist. I have to get to her. He breaks out of his restraints on the boat and fucking jumps overboard, and everyone else on the boat has visible beeswax in their ears and are just having a normal fucking conversation. It didn't do anything for them. I don't know why they even bothered. Odysseus, after jumping ship, wakes up next to some woman who says that she wants to make him a god, and then he kind of turns her down and she freaks the fuck out, and then he's like, maybe we should just make out, and then they do. This mystery woman, wouldn't you guess it, is Calypso. Oh, we cut back to Penelope on Ithaca, and she is praying to Athene for information about Odysseus, and this is when we learn that this is Calypso. Unrelated to anything that's happening here, Penelope has a little nickname for Odysseus, and that is that she calls him her pirate. This happens multiple points throughout the movie, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Anyway, we get back to the island of Calypso. Now, this is not a deserted island like it is in any other adaptation of the Odyssey. There are, in fact, other people there. In fact, Odysseus wakes up, and there's just 2 guys duking it out. fighting. I don't know. Anyway, that's fine. The fighters are there to entertain them for their amusement. One of the fighters literally rips his opponent's heart out right in front of Calypso, and Calypso's like, yay, this is my favorite part. She's such a freak. Odie wants to leave, but Calypso, won't let him leave. So he's like, I will be the fighter. And she's like, you can't because you're mortal. And then he's like, no, I'll fight and I'll win. And then he's like, I will choose no weapon. Then he just gets on his knees and he's like, kill me. Kill me, I want to die. Turns out the fighter who won, who is now standing in front of him, about to kill him, it's Cersei. She's fine. She just, helps him up, and they're like, we're going to get you out of here. Calypso just, lets him. I don't know why, and also gives him powder and is like, your crewmates are here. They're also trapped under a spell. If you want to free them, use this powder on them. These crewmates are also out in the fucking wild of this island with their own nymph ladies to be enticed by. Odysseus blows some powder on their faces, and you good there? And suddenly the women that they're canoodling with just turn into elderly women. And then they're like, oh God, you're disgusting. And then they all leave. Except for one of the guys who's a very old man who's like, my wife is dead. This is as good as it's ever going to get for me. And then he stays. That's great. Hype those women up, my king. Now, on the same island of Calypso that they have currently been on this entire time, they find the entrance to the Passage of the Dead. Cersei and Odysseus are having a little chat about Ithaca. And she's like, what do you miss most about home? And he's like, the women of Ithaca are the most beautiful women in the world. And Cersei's like, I bet all men say that about their cities. And he's like, not from Sparta, they don't. Bitch, your wife is from Sparta. What the fuck do you mean? Anyway, they get into the Passage of the Dead, and it just looks like the fucking tunnels from the Phantom of the Opera. I don't know why. One of the guys wanders off and is attacked by a Viking. Anyway, Odysseus comes to his rescue, and by that I mean he's killed by the Viking, but Odysseus is now fighting the Viking. Anyway, Odysseus apparently has a magic sword, but the magic can only be used by Cersei since she's a Trojan, and it's a Trojan sword. She turns the Viking to stone with the magic sword, and then Odysseus drop kicks him. Cut back to Ithaca. We see Telemachus talking to his mom and also all of the suitors, and Telemachus is in the hand-me-down party city robe. They couldn't afford 2 costumes. Please. Back to Odysseus. Enter some random-ass cavern after escaping the Passage of the Dead, and they start eating some mystery meat that they find. Wouldn't you know it? It's people. This is the lair of the Cyclops, and wowie, can I just say, this CGI is a new low. All of the Cyclopses in all of these adaptations are fucking heinous. They're so bad. I want to make a tier list of all of the CGI Cyclopses, because God, are they hard to look at. The only people left at this point are Eurylochus, Cersei, and Odysseus. While they're in the lair of the Cyclops, Eurylochus is kind of stuck on his own, and Odysseus is like, I have to help him. And then he calls out to him, he's like, Eurylochus! And Eurylochus turns and freezes and looks at him, immediately fucking squashed by the Cyclops foot. That is 100% on you, my guy. You killed him. That is your fault. Odysseus takes some powder and pours it into the Cyclops' drink and then hands it to him, yada, yada, yada. Cersei's like, what did you give to him to knock him out? And Odysseus is like, opium. Anyway, Penelope then issues the challenge for her suitors who are running amok on Ithaca. And she specifically says that the challenge is to string the bow and then shoot it through a set of 5 golden rings. Now, this is very interesting to me. I understand why they changed it from axes, because axes nowadays don't have holes in them, so people might be a little confused. However, was there not the budget for 12 props? Why 5? That's very specific. Anyway, Odysseus and Cersei get a boat from Calypso, and then they just go back to Ithaca. Apparently, they're just there. And on the beach, Odysseus is like, Cersei, you should stay here. We've become such good friends. And she's like, I would rather be an adventurer off at sea. And then they have a really, really fucking weird hug where Odysseus grabs her face and says, you are my friend. And then she leaves. Cut to Penelope back up in the palace. She is going to kill herself. Romeo and Juliet style. She's just going to poison herself, apparently, because she's had enough. She tells Telemachus that he needs to take, the signet ring for the king of Ithaca and to flee and go see Menelaus in Sparta so that he can basically build an army, say, I am the rightful king of Ithaca, be backed by Menelaus, and then come back and retake Ithaca after she has, married the suitor and probably killed herself. I don't know. Anyway, so he leaves leaves the palace. On his way out of the palace, he runs into a old beggar man in the middle of the street and is like, wow, this guy looks so pathetic. I should talk to him. Anyway, it's Odysseus. Wow, wouldn't you know, they look so different. Odysseus asking him for the nasty details, for the hot gossip of the town, is like, what's going on here? Telemachus tells him that Penelope's gonna remarry, and Odysseus is like, wow, I'm so glad she found love. That's good for her. And Telemachus is like, no, she fucking hates them. It's going bad. And then he's like, oh, well, if only the king were here. Just kidding, I'm the king. Telemachus, your daddy's home. He's like, hey, you should kill all the suitors with me. And Telemachus is like, let's go. They go and they fight the suitors. They do the whole, arrow thing, whatever. Anyway, I just want to point out this fight scene. I was stuck on Telemachus the entire time because it is insane where he goes. Okay, Telemachus's placement in this battle scene is just so funny to me because he's all over the place. It makes no sense. He starts out in like the center of the screen and then moves his way to the left. And then he appears on the right, throws a sword to Odysseus across the screen towards the left. Odysseus rolls to pick it up. And then Telemachus is on the right, walking backwards again. The next scene, Telemachus is back over on the left side of the room, walking all the way back over to the right. My man, the speeds you move at is insane. Anyway, Odysseus and Antinous are fighting. Telemachus tries to gang up on Antinous, gets one hit KO'd immediately. Odysseus is kind of like on the ground shielding him and is like, I would die for you, my son. And it looks like he's gonna get stabbed. And then Antinous gets stabbed. Turns around, Circe's back again. She killed Antinous. The family reunites. They have this beautiful time. She's like, Odysseus, my husband. He's like, Penelope, my wife. And they're like, Telemachus, you're also here. And they have a group hug and it's beautiful. Anyway, cut to the Kraken storming the beaches of Ithaca. That's right, the Kraken's back, baby. Odysseus is immediately like, oh my god, the Kraken has followed me all the way here. I have to sacrifice myself, otherwise it's gonna kill my whole family. Him and Circe go back down to the beaches of Ithaca, and Circe's like, I know what we can do. Give me your cloak so that I can disguise myself as an Ithacan so that the Kraken will attack me. This plan makes zero sense, however, it does work. She literally pulls out the cloak and she's like, I'm Odysseus. And the Kraken goes towards her. And then she immediately takes it off and is like, just kidding, I'm Circe, I'm a Trojan and I'm proud. She immediately gets eaten by the Kraken. And Odysseus is a little bummed about this. However, we cut back to the Kraken. Turns out Circe is not actually dead. She is cutting the Kraken open from the inside. That's great. She cuts her way out. The Kraken explodes or something. I don't know. It dies. Cut to Circe again on the beach. This time she is actually dying now. And Odysseus is like, oh, you saved us. And she's like, you're my friend too. And then she dies. And then the last scene is them holding a funeral for Circe, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. I loved it. Troy, the Odyssey, aka God Wars. I want to give this one 2 on accuracy. I feel like it deserves... No, actually, yeah, 2. No, 1. This 0, actually. This deserves a 0. 0 on accuracy. This movie was fucking wild. It was so much fun, though. Incredibly bad, I might add. Style points. 2. I'll give it a 3. I'll be generous and give it a 3. I had a great time watching it. It is so goddamn bad. But anyway, those are all the weird adaptations of the Odyssey that I could find. There are some other ones that I wanted to watch but didn't get around to. They did an episode of The Simpsons that was about the Odyssey, but they've done an episode of fucking everything for The Simpsons. That's nothing new. There's also a animated kids TV show from the early 2000s called Mission Odyssey. That looks great. However, I don't have time for another TV show, and also nothing can beat Ulysses 31. If you're gonna watch anything, go watch Your Brother, Where Art Thou? Also, Ulysses 31. Anyway, if you know any other weird adaptations of the Odyssey, please let me know. I maybe will watch it, probably not. I will be busy for the remaining amount of time that I will be alive, watching Ulysses 31, and also over on Art Fight, drawing my little heart out. I am not good at art, however, I'm having a great time. Anyway, I'm gonna go watch the Odyssey at some point in a week. I can't wait. Okay, bye.